The first thing I noticed wasn't the bouquet of flowers on the kitchen table or the soft melody drifting from the living room. It was my own reflection in the hallway mirror, and for a heartbeat, I didn't recognize the person staring back at me. Every evening, that mirror asked me the same silent question. Who are you when nobody is watching? For years, I pretended not to hear it. My name is Daniel, and if you had met me at work, you would have seen nothing unusual. I was the dependable husband who left before sunrise carrying a travel mug of coffee, answered emails with impossible speed, laughed at office jokes, and returned home exhausted after another long day. Everyone believed they knew me. Even I believed that for a while. Until my wife, Emma, gently shattered the version of myself I had spent decades protecting. It started on an ordinary Tuesday. Rain tapped softly against my windshield as I pulled into our driveway. My shoulders ached from sitting at a desk for nearly 10 hours, and my mind felt heavier than the clouds overhead. When I opened the front door, the familiar scent of cinnamon and fresh bread wrapped around me like a warm blanket. "You're home," Emma called cheerfully. "I survived," I answered with a tired smile. She walked over, kissed my forehead, and instead of asking about work, she looked directly into my eyes. "No pretending tonight." Those 3 words stopped me cold. She wasn't accusing me. She wasn't teasing. She simply knew. For months, she'd noticed tiny things I thought I had hidden perfectly. The way I'd linger while folding laundry, carefully smoothing the fabric of one of her dresses. The way my eyes drifted toward elegant scarves displayed in shop windows. The way I always smiled whenever an old love song played. The same song my mother used to hum while getting ready in front of her bedroom mirror. A mirror. It had followed me my entire life. As a child, I'd secretly wrap towels around my shoulders like flowing gowns, only to hide everything the moment footsteps approached. I learned very early that some feelings were easier to bury than explain. Or so I thought. Emma disappeared upstairs for a moment before returning with a carefully wrapped box. "I've been waiting until you were ready." My stomach tightened. Ready for what? She simply handed me the gift. Inside rested a soft lavender cardigan, a flowing cream-colored skirt, and a delicate silver pendant shaped like a tiny mirror. Not flashy, not theatrical, just beautiful. "I thought," she began carefully, "you might like to see yourself the way kindness sees you." My hands trembled. "I don't know if I can." "You don't have to become anyone else." She smiled. "I just want you to stop hiding from yourself." Tears blurred my vision before I even realized I was crying. "I'm scared." "I know. What if this changes everything?" She gently squeezed my hand. "Maybe it changes nothing. Maybe it changes everything. But either way." She looked toward the hallway mirror. "You deserve to meet the person who's been waiting there all these years." That evening I carried the box upstairs. I stood outside the bedroom for nearly 15 minutes without opening the door. Every anxious thought I'd collected over 35 years echoed through my mind. What if I look ridiculous? What if I'm disappointed? What if this isn't really me? The mirror reflected a nervous man frozen by fear. Slowly, I unfolded the cardigan. The fabric was unbelievably soft. As I slipped it over my shoulders, something unexpected happened. I didn't feel like I was pretending. Felt peaceful. Not transformed. Not perfect. Simply quieter inside. Emma knocked gently. "Can I come in?" He nodded. She stepped inside without saying a word. Instead of commenting on the clothes, she looked at my face. "There you are." 3 simple words. Yet they carried more acceptance than I had ever imagined possible. I looked back at the mirror. For the first time I didn't see someone hiding. I saw someone beginning. And somehow that felt far more frightening than staying invisible ever had. Because stepping into the truth, even inside your own home, is often the hardest journey of all. The next morning I woke before the alarm, and the first thing I saw was the little silver mirror pendant resting on my nightstand. It caught the first ray of sunlight and scattered it across the room, almost as if it were reminding me of the promise I had quietly made to myself the night before. "No pretending tonight." Emma's words echoed in my mind, Not as pressure, but as permission. Work felt different that day. Nothing around me had changed. My coworkers chatted about deadlines, weekend plans, and the latest office gossip. I answered emails, attended meetings, and smiled at the appropriate moments. Yet beneath the routine, I carried a strange sense of calm mixed with nervous anticipation. For years I had divided my life into two worlds. One belonged to everyone else. The other belonged only to my thoughts. Now those worlds had begun drifting toward each other, and I wasn't sure whether to celebrate or panic. When I finally arrived home, Emma was watering the flowers outside. She smiled the moment she saw me. "Long day." "The usual. But your eyes are different," she said. "Different how?" "They look lighter." I laughed softly. I didn't know eyes could lose weight. "They can," she replied. "When the heart stops carrying everything alone." That sentence stayed with me long after we went inside. Later that evening, Emma invited me to help organize the guest room. It had slowly become a place for forgotten boxes, old photographs, and memories we never found time to revisit. While sorting through one dusty container, I found an old family picture. I couldn't have been older than 8. There I stood beside my mother, smiling so brightly that it almost hurt to look at. She wore the same gentle smile I remembered. In the corner of the photograph sat the old bedroom mirror from my childhood. I stared at it for several seconds. "It's funny," I whispered. "What is?" Ma asked. "I always thought that mirror remembered more about me than anyone else." She looked at the picture before smiling warmly. Maybe it did. That night after dinner she surprised me again. "I'd like to show you something." She led me into the spare room. While I had been at work, she had transformed it completely. A comfortable chair sat beside a bookshelf filled with novels we both loved. Soft lighting replaced the harsh ceiling lamp. A small vase held fresh lavender, filling the room with a peaceful fragrance. Near the window stood a full-length mirror. Not because appearances mattered, but because reflections had become part of my journey. "This isn't a dressing room," Emma explained. "It's your quiet place. A place where you don't have to perform." I slowly walked toward the mirror. This time I wasn't afraid to look. Over the following weeks, an evening ritual quietly formed between us. Every day when I came home from work, I'd leave my briefcase by the front door, loosen my tie, and take a deep breath. Emma would smile and say exactly the same thing. "I know how to make my husband happy." Then she'd hand me a comfortable outfit. Sometimes a flowing cardigan, sometimes a soft blouse paired with relaxed trousers, sometimes a cozy oversized sweater whose color simply made me smile. There was never any expectation, never any demand, only kindness. To an outsider it might have looked insignificant. To me it was life-changing. Those quiet evenings became less about clothing and more about honesty. The more I accepted myself at home, the more I noticed how much energy I had spent hiding from myself everywhere else. Still, fear hadn't disappeared, simply changed shape. One Saturday afternoon, Emma suggested we visit a quiet bookstore across town. As we browsed the shelves, an elderly woman approached us. She looked at me, then at the silver pendant around my neck. "What a lovely mirror charm," she said with a warm smile. "Thank you," I replied. She nodded thoughtfully. "My late husband always said mirrors never tell us who we should be." She paused before adding, "They only ask whether we're brave enough to recognize ourselves." Then she wished us a pleasant afternoon and walked away. I stood completely still. Emma gently squeezed my hand. Funny how strangers sometimes arrive exactly when we need them. On the drive home, silence filled the car. Not an awkward silence, but one full of reflection. For the first time in my life, I realized my greatest obstacle had never been society. It had been the harsh voice inside my own head. The voice that insisted acceptance had to be earned. The voice that believed authenticity was something to apologize for. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I glanced at the mirror pendant one more time. It no longer represented uncertainty. It represented courage. Quiet. Growing stronger every day. Yet deep down, another question lingered. Finding peace inside our home had been one thing. Stepping into the wider world without fear would require a different kind of courage altogether. And I had no idea whether I was ready for that next reflection. The following Monday, I paused at the front door longer than usual. My briefcase rested at my feet. My hand was on the doorknob. The little silver mirror pendant lay against my chest, hidden beneath my shirt, but I could still feel its cool weight. It had become my quiet reminder. Not to be someone different. To stop running from who I already was. Emma noticed my hesitation before I said a word. She walked over with the same gentle smile that had welcomed me home every evening for months. "When my husband comes home from work," she said softly, "I definitely know how to make him happy." She didn't hand me clothes immediately. Instead, she wrapped me in a warm hug. For the first time, I understood what she had meant all along. Happiness had never been about fabric, colors, or appearances. It was about coming home to a place where nothing had to be hidden. That realization settled over me like sunlight after a storm. As the weeks passed, my confidence began growing in ways I hadn't expected. I stood a little taller. I smiled more easily. I laughed without constantly wondering how I appeared to everyone else. The biggest transformation wasn't visible in the mirror. It was happening in my thoughts. The voice that once criticized every feeling slowly lost its authority. It didn't disappear overnight. Some mornings it still whispered old fears. "People won't understand. You're pretending. You'll never belong." But another voice had grown stronger. Kinder voice. Emma's voice. "You deserve to meet yourself." One afternoon, my younger sister, Lily, called to invite us to a small family gathering. The old anxiety returned immediately. Family had always been loving, but they also carried expectations I had spent years trying to satisfy. All evening I wrestled with the invitation. Emma never told me what to do. She simply listened. Finally I sighed. "I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering which version of me people love." She smiled gently. "Then don't give them a version. Give them you." The day of the gathering arrived. I chose an outfit that felt true to me. Simple, modest, and comfortable. A soft cardigan, neatly styled hair, and the little mirror pendant resting where it always did. Nothing dramatic. Nothing designed to shock. Just honesty. The drive felt longer than usual. Every mile seemed to ask whether I should turn back. By the time we reached my sister's house, my hands were trembling. Emma reached across the center console and held one of them. "You don't have to be fearless. You only have to take one step." So I did. The front door opened. Conversations paused for a brief moment. I felt every heartbeat, every breath. Then Lily smiled. Not politely, not awkwardly, genuinely. "There you are," she said. The same words Emma had spoken months before. "There you are." Tears immediately blurred my vision. My sister hugged me without hesitation. One by one, conversations resumed. Some relatives asked thoughtful questions. Some simply welcomed me. A few needed time to understand, and that was all right. I had spent years hoping everyone would approve before allowing myself to exist. Now I realized acceptance begins long before anyone else offers it. Begins inside. Later that evening, my father quietly joined me on the back porch. Neither of us spoke for several moments. Finally he looked toward the sunset. "I've been thinking," he said. "I always worried about whether you were successful." He smiled faintly. "I should have been asking whether you were happy." I couldn't answer. Emotion closed my throat. Instead I hugged him. Sometimes forgiveness doesn't arrive through long speeches. Sometimes it arrives through silence. Months turned into a year. Life settled into a rhythm that felt wonderfully ordinary. Every evening I came home from work, tired but peaceful. Emma would greet me at the door with the same familiar sentence. "When my husband comes home from work, I definitely know how to make him happy." Sometimes we cooked dinner together. Sometimes we watched old movies. Sometimes we simply sat with cups of tea, talking about our day while the rain tapped softly against the windows. The mirror in our hallway remained exactly where it had always been. But every time I walked past it, I noticed something different. No longer asked who I was. It reflected someone who finally knew. Not because every fear had disappeared. Not because every person understood my journey. But because I had stopped measuring my worth through someone else's expectations. The silver mirror pendant had become more than a gift. It was a symbol of every small act of courage that had brought me here. Every honest conversation. Every uncertain step. Every moment I chose authenticity over fear. Looking back, the greatest transformation wasn't from one appearance to another. It was from silence to self-acceptance. From hiding to healing. From surviving each day to truly living it. And every evening, as I unlocked the front door after another long day at work, I smiled before I even stepped inside. Because I already knew what I would hear. When my husband comes home from work, I definitely know how to make him happy. This time I always answered the same way. You already have. And for the first time in my life, the person smiling back from the mirror wasn't a stranger.